Your best performers in sales will almost always succeed. The poor performers will always struggle, but there's a middle ground that contains more than half of the sellers in any given organization, and today's CRM applications aren't helping them improve. Today, we're talking to David Roberts, CEO of SugarCRM, who says the businesses that use AI in the right way can solve this problem and help their sellers. Welcome to Conversations with MarTech.
I'm David Roberts. I'm the CEO of SugarCRM. I've been in and around CRM for my whole career. I started in Accenture's CRM practice. I just talked to you a bit about SugarCRM, which was my very first client. But shortly after that, I started helping all sorts of different companies with customer business processes, Salesforce automation, customer service. I stayed at Accenture for quite a long time, 17 years. I then did something completely different, helped the mayor of Denver run the city of Denver, again, with this customer orientation. How do we help residents really feel like they're connected to the city they live in? And since then, this is now my third stint as a technology and software CEO. And of course, throughout that entire time, I've now become the customer of making sure we do right by our customers and help provide great experience during the sales process and throughout the customer experience process after we win business. So I'm thrilled to be with you. I really appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, I mean, a little conversation about helicopters. It's a big topic of interest where I am and where you were when you were working alongside Sikorsky. So when I started the discussion with your comms people about having you on Conversations with MarTech, they told me you were ready to fight. You want to stir things up in CRM. So let's start there. How are you seeing the CRM market right now?
Well, I think it starts a long time ago. I was in my junior days at Accenture, I was implementing Siebel, and we probably all remember Siebel. Back then, the promise was that you could actually help sellers sell. And it's been 30 years. I still don't think we've completely cracked that code. In management, we love looking at pipeline. We love looking at forecast. It gives us this illusion of control that we can actually influence our sales results by inspecting the pipeline. And sure, as leaders, sometimes we're able to influence a deal or help a salesperson take the right approach. But I don't think the software is really fundamentally helping move that middle 60 in terms of performance to the right. You know, your top 20 are always going to hit their quota. Your bottom 15 are probably never going to hit their quota. And good sales leaders and good executives help that middle 60 just perform better. I think today, the advent of AI allows us to finally crack this code and have sellers feel like they get more out of these products than they put into them. And that's what we at Sugar are trying to solve for. And I think it can lead to a 30-year problem finally being addressed.
I'm glad you brought up AI because we can't do an episode without it.
Right.
But you can imagine where I sit. There's a daily barrage of AI this and AI that. Everybody has AI. Every company is adding AI to their product name, some to their company names. Has this become a distraction for companies? You mentioned how AI can help with that middle that has been somewhat neglected with CRM. But is it taking attention away from the core use of products like CRM?
I don't think so. I think it's a means to an end, not an end in and of itself. And too many companies are talking about it as the outcome. Just like any other tool, right? If we go back 10 years ago, everyone was talking about BI, business intelligence, dashboards, insights. Let's move from insights to action. We still talk about that in software, but again, BI was a means to an end, not the end in and of itself. So AI is going to be an amazingly powerful tool, but not if business approaches AI in the way that we as individuals use AI, right? It used to be, we'd go to Google and we type in, I just put a roof rack on my Bronco, right? So you could say Bronco roof racks. That's what we used to say. Right now, we actually say, what's the best roof rack that fits in garages? Like, we put a whole bunch of context into our question and we get really rich answers. But that experience is sort of an ask me anything kind of approach. I think what businesses have to figure out is how to use AI in the context of the business process, in the context of the business objectives, in the context of the data that powers business. And this kind of wide open prompt based ask me anything approach, I think is a failing strategy. So I think it's really important, but I don't think enough companies are using the technology in the right way.
Yeah, I think the stats I've seen, I'm probably going to screw this up by a little bit, but to your point on like searches, the average Google search, keyword search was 4 to 6 words, and the average
Yep.
LLM prompt is something like 2 dozen.
Yep.
Um, significant difference,
Right.
but we have culturally taken AI and LLMs and sort of made them the same thing. And there's a
Right.
lot of AI going in tools like yours and other CRM and big enterprise tools that are completely different than the LLM.
Yep. Yeah. I used an analogy with my CTO the other day, right? We were talking about AI as a means to an end, not in the end and of itself. You'll hear a lot of customers when it comes to security or it comes to availability or reliability, talk about SOC 2 type 2 audits, right? So a customer might come to you and say, are you SOC 2? They're, they care about the end, not the means. They actually want to know that you're secure, you're reliable, you're highly available. But they say, are you SOC 2 compliant? Because that gives them a hint or at least an idea that the company takes that stuff seriously. I think it's the same thing with AI. When customers come to us and say, are you AI powered? They, they care about the result that technology delivers, but it gives them an idea that you're thinking about solving their problems in the right way. It's a shortcut. And what I think it presents an amazing opportunity for us to continually get like, reframe that conversation. And the way I'd say it is, yeah, AI is at the core of what we do, but it's not this wide open, ask me anything approach. We specifically are building tools that allow sellers to know what's going on with an account or within their opportunity base or within their churn and contraction challenges. We put it in the context of the business process, and then it becomes incredibly valuable.
So you mentioned this a couple minutes ago, and I want to get your perspective on what has been the dominant theme, I would say, of the past 6 to 12 months. And that is that you can AI all you want, but if your data isn't in order, you're not going to improve much of anything.
Right. Well, and I think AI needs more than just data. When we think about selling, we need to we actually need to give the implementation, their sales process, their sales methodology, some content about how they engage their customers. And then there's all the customer and opportunity data. So it's all that context together. And you might have been referring to content as data also, but all of that context is what makes these AI solutions like valuable and legitimate. We talk about Sugar as a precision selling platform. That word precision is incredibly important for us. It can't be that a seller asks the same question today and tomorrow and gets different answers, because sellers are naturally skeptical that this kind of technology is going to help them as sellers. And unless they have confidence in what we're providing, unless they can actually drill into it and see, why did you recommend I go do that? Prove to me that it's based on something that I believe in. They're never going to adopt it, right? So you're right, that data, that context is incredibly important.
Yeah, I think context has been maybe from where I sit over the past 5 months, 3 months, the conversation went from data and AI to context to, I think it's important because I think what it does is, it fills the story, right?
Yep.
You've got AI, you've got information, but it doesn't exist in a vacuum. Like you were just talking about the sales process and stuff. Like if that information the AI is giving people doesn't understand how this process works, doesn't understand the challenges of the sellers. You mentioned their skepticism, the challenges of the buyers who may also have skepticism and are overwhelmed. I think that's that's the thing that people have been talking about to me over the past 4 or 5 months that maybe was missing from some of the early conversations around data and AI.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too. And I think there's a lot of hype with AI, just like those of us who lived through 99 and 2000, there was a lot of hype around the internet. Um, Anything that had a .com associated with it was getting incredible valuation, a whole bunch of hype, a whole bunch of money. I think the difference today is companies are actually making money. The AI companies that are, NVIDIA and Google and Amazon and Microsoft, they're making tons of money. So it's not a question of profitability, but there still is a lot of hype around it. And I don't think businesses have yet figured out how to apply it in a way that's narrow enough to be valuable. And that they've done the hard work to give these LLMs and these models the context to guide people through whatever business process is important to that company.
Yeah, you mentioned the .com boom. I think all of us who lived through that are having this almost daily thing like, is this or is this not like
Right.
that? Is this the bubble? Is it not? I think you mentioned companies are making money. The companies that you mentioned also have other revenue streams of
They
AI,
do.
the dominant theme. And the smaller companies, a lot of them aren't public, which I
True.
think is a big difference between now and the .com boom, when everybody with the .com in their name was having an IPO with no revenue.
Well, and to harken back to those days, it's over 25 years. I think the internet's turned out to be something that was pretty important, right? It just the hype then took a while for it to play out and really impact business. And I think AI is going to be the exact same. There's this huge amount of hype around it. Now people need to figure out the practical applications and ways that work for businesses. I remember the CEO of Anderson Consulting, Accenture, left to go be the CEO of Webvan, and Webvan was going to deliver groceries to everybody, right? And that business didn't succeed. But today, a lot of us have groceries dropped off on our front porch, and it works incredibly well. And companies have figured out how to make money doing it. It just took a little while for the internet-driven business models to actually figure themselves out. And I think that's exactly what we'll see with AI also.
Yeah, and I think you see, what you saw with the internet, you get 5 or 6 companies who rise to the top, right? You just named a bunch of them. But when it comes to AI, it's like those same 5 or 6 companies, right? I think there's probably some companies, OpenAI being one of them, who we
Totally
didn't know about 5 years ago,
true.
who will rise up. But it's a lot of the AI work is being done by the companies who survived and thrives through the .com.
Well, and I think what we will see is we'll see some companies who are exceptional at making use of the technology in the applications that serve their customer base. And I think we may see people kind of rise up as they're able to go solve specific business problems, whether it's supply chain management or whether it's financial or HR business processes, or for us, selling business processes that are able to use that technology in new and special ways. And we'll see them emerge too.
All right. So if AI and data were the dominant conversation of the last 12 months, what do you think is going to be the dominant conversation of the next 12 months? If we were to talk again in early 2027, what would we be talking
I think we'll be talking about a lot of the same things, honestly. And I think what we'll see is more and more people will be building solutions to solve the underlying enablers of AI, right? So rather than talk about, for example, I was joking with my head of product last night, and I said, what if we were able to provide our customers with a, what did I call it? Context readiness utility, right? Which we could run against their underlying data, which we could run against their underlying content. And we could say on a scale of 1 to 100, how much value are you likely to get out of AI because you've got things set up in the right way? And if you don't, how about we help you figure out where to go focus to improve those underlying processes, that underlying content, that underlying data, so you can take advantage of our technology. Now, there's lots of companies that are already doing something similar to that, but I think we can be narrowly focused on a sales process or on customer data, because those are going to be two of the real cornerstones of our solutions to help customers figure out how to do that. So maybe a year from now, you'll see companies really focused on the enablement of AI and not just the application of AI.
Has there been too much vendor hands off AI to client and walks away, and just not enough enablement, in your words, not enough, consulting or services to say, no, here's how to make it work for you.
Well, I think for sure. And I think a lot of providers are giving people this ask me anything approach, right? Like, I'm technology forward. I'm not using a lot of these tools that are now available through a lot of the companies that I already work with, without like naming specific names, because it doesn't feel like it's enough. It's applicable enough to what I'm trying to go do. So I think that's what will happen. This narrowing will happen. This focus will happen. This focus on what needs to be in place to make it a reality. That's what I think we'll talk about more and more throughout 26.
All right. David Roberts, CEO of SugarCRM. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. I really enjoyed it.